could be on China's urbanization model. Actually, I will go beyond that. We'll talk about China's growth model, which is very closely related. I only have 20 minutes. I realize I have a lot to talk. Let me just show you. China's growth model since the late 1990s actually did bear the birthmark of a typical Eastern Asian model. What is that? A growth-oriented, autocratic, reinforced pro-business regime through labor repression, labor suppression, financial repression, and industrial policies. These measures also made its products competitive in international markets, a necessity to compensate for domestic frugality. Okay, but China is not just another supersized Taiwan or South Korea or Japan. China's reliance on investment and suppression of consumption since the middle 1990s is extreme, even by the already extreme Eastern Asian standards. This is actually the investment share of GDP. Look, what average is about 20 to 30%. South Korea and Japan higher, China even higher. Okay, there are disputes about the statistics, but the large picture, is there. And domestic consumption as a share of GDP, actually, China is lower than the already low East Asian standard. South Korea, Japan, China, less than 40% by 2008. Now, the investment, stop growing that fast. China's consumption over GDP is about 50%, still very low. Okay. So China is a developmental state. Aggressive developmentalism was a result of fierce competition for investment, especially for manufacturing business among Chinese local governments. Okay. If you go to different places in China, you find industrial parks being built everywhere. I guess actually probably 10,000 industrial parks in China. They have very strong appetites for growth and investment, especially for export-oriented manufacturing. In the drive to secure revenue, local governments compete fiercely with each other for manufacturing capital, for tax revenues. Government policies were applied to construct extremely pro-business conditions with over-investment. But this local developmentalism has intensified since the middle 1990s. After the central government re-centralized the physical revenue, the central government actually grabbed more than 50% of the revenue towards only 20 to 30%. This is very counterintuitive. Why? After central government grabbed more revenue from local government, we didn't see lower incentive of local governments in development, right? For example, before 1994, central revenue was less than 30%. After that, it jumped to close to 60%. Okay, the puzzle. Why after 1994 revenue centralization, one does not find government incentive, local incentive, to promote economic growth? Some would argue, it's because local governments cadres were evaluated according to GDP growth rates, so they have political incentive. This is the so-called tournament competition theory. Actually, let me tell you, there's no such evaluation system that promotes local officials according to GDP growth. There's no such a thing in this country. Okay, I will show you some economic explanation. Look at local revenue. Okay, local revenue. Y is manufacturing output. T is the tax rate. Alpha is local share. As alpha decreases, local incentive should decrease if other things are unchanged. However, other things have also been changed. Okay, the 1994 tax reform essentially raised the T. The T has been increased. Okay, so effective tax rates alpha T did not decrease as much. Okay, but other things equal, a higher tax rate on manufacturing would hurt manufacturing tax base by lowering the industry output. But why? So why should decrease? But China become the world factory for low-end manufacturing goods. What happens? Because other conditions have also changed. Both the central government and local government acted together to promote industry growth by the central government devaluing renminbi. Okay. Hugely 40% depreciation of cost naturally led to more export-oriented manufacturing. More investors come from abroad. Okay, to invest, local government also works very hard to change other conditions. Since the middle 1990s, they begin to engage in a race to what I would call race to the bottom competition for manufacturing investments by providing cheap land, by largely ignoring labor and environmental regulations. Actually, you don't need to pay social insurance for your manufacturing employees. Okay, you can stay. Okay, so that actually lowered the cost of manufacturing investment. So they would come here even with higher tax rates, right? So this non-tax regional competition strategies, though sacrificing the rights of dispossessed farmers, migrant workers, and the people's health, help to lower the cost of manufacturing production without lowering formal tax rates, without sacrificing the local tax revenue. Okay, so if you look, so as land leased to manufacturing business is very cheap. You would find as China urbanized, they use about 40 to 50% of the land for manufacturing because land is cheap. So in other countries it's 10 to 15%. For other countries, they will, in their urbanization, they will use about 50 to 60% of the land for residential development. China, less than 30%. So that you would see industrial parks like this, very, wastefully used. They even build fountains, and then, but local governments undersupply residential land, so you see high rises everywhere in China's residential community. Okay, so and the housing price becomes so high because they undersupply residential land. Where do the 200 million migrant workers live? They live in urban villages like this. Half of them live in urban villages, half of them live in dormitories. Okay, so you see industrial parks, national level, provincial level, city level, county level, township level, industrial parks everywhere in China. Okay. Let me just give you quickly about what my understanding of China's growth. This is a very ugly picture, but I think it's important. There's a state financial sector. Okay. Mainly state-owned banks. The government depress the interest rates. Okay, so everyone who sees the money in the bank, they don't get much, capital return. And then the bank, at 2 points, lend it out to, the loan rates is still significantly lower than the market rate. Okay, but the bank earns this 2-point interest rates difference between deposits and lending rates. But then they lend it out cheaply, but China's private sector, mainly export-oriented consumer goods manufacturers, they don't get it. They don't get, much loan from here. Who gets the money? It's the local government's investment platform. They first borrow money from banks, and then they grab land from farmers. They pay them a little bit compensation, but they need to pay for the infrastructure. Okay, so that's very costly. And then after preparing the land, they lease the industrial land out for 50 years at zero or negative price. That means the leasing price is usually lower or at most equal to the land compensation to the farmers plus the land preparation for infrastructure, right? And when you get cheap land leased out for export-oriented consumer sector, they will come, okay, and stay, and they pay value-added tax. But 75% of the value-added tax go to central government. Local government only get 25%. Okay, that's not much. But local government is not only looking at this. They're also looking at industrial spillover. Because for most cities, okay, except the super large ones, if you don't have manufacturing sector, there will be no one who will purchase house, there will be no jobs, no residential commercial development. But only when you have exports, type of manufacturing, you have, prosperous real estate sector. This sector actually provides first business tax, second, land leasing revenue for local government. With these two revenue are purely local tax. So when local government competes very hard for manufacturing investments, they are actually looking not only from the revenue here, but also the spillover from manufacturing to service sector. Okay, so local government, and then only when land price began to increase, housing price began to increase, local governments get the revenue from land leasing for commercial and residential purpose, and then they pay back the loans. Okay, so one wave after another, development of manufacturing industrial parks, as well as new cities that is mainly, used for revenue for residential and commercial development. As China's export-oriented consumer goods manufacturing grow, there is a largely state-owned sector in high-end manufacturing and service sector. Actually, they have some monopolistic position here, so the demand for their goods began to increase, as well as the real estate development. So basically, state-owned heavy industry and high-end service sector, they make huge money out of this development between 2002 and 2008. Okay, so they were also able to get cheap loans from the state-owned banks. They used the money to purchase coal, raw material and mines all around the world, and in China, some of them also speculate on the China's land market. Okay, but something changed in 2008. There's a huge world financial crisis. The Chinese government's response is this huge physical and financial stimulus package. Okay, what's the impact? First, the real estate market was apparently overstimulated, but we also saw more industrial park being built. That looks very strange. Why? Because the world financial crisis means exports would not grow like 20% every year. Since after that, why local governments began to build more industrial parks? Okay, two reasons. First, with stimulus package, you have huge, housing bubble being built in almost every tier of cities. Local governments, for many inland regions, even without manufacturing base, their housing price began to increase. That gives local governments some physical illusion that they will have a lot of money in the future. So let's borrow from state-owned banks to build more industrial parks to consolidate local, economic foundation. Okay. So physical illusion from inappropriate physical, government stimulus package. Second, this is state-owned bank. Let's borrow and build industrial parks in new cities. If we cannot pay back, it's the state-owned bank. The central government will come to rescue. So moral hazard from state-owned bank system. This and the physical illusion from the housing bubble actually make it happen that more industrial parks actually have been built in 2000, after 2008. Actually, I think I missed the picture there. So even more industry parks and new cities have been built after 2009. Local government's debt increased from 5 trillion in 2008 to 10 trillion 2010. Now the estimate is about perhaps 20 to 30 trillion. No one really knows what's going on, but now this market is cooling down. Bubble began to burst in second or third, fourth tier cities. It will happen. It will finally come to first tier cities. Okay, I think. In a few years, when the bubble bursts, everything will become very ugly. I only have 5 minutes. Okay, let me show you. Okay, so what should be done? What should be done? Okay. Now, if China's housing bubble bursts, it will add to huge non-performing loans from three entities. Not to mention the home buyers. Actually, they're the least risky borrower. It's first real estate developers. They borrow huge money. 70% of their development fund is borrowed from bank because they need to auction residential land in China, in Chinese cities. So if bubble bursts, there will be a lot of non-performing loans in this sector, from the states, from the real estate developer. Second, local governments, they use their land and lease the land as collateral, to borrow money from state-owned banks to build these new cities, industrial parks. If the housing market collapse, they will have huge performing loans. Third is central government SOEs, who raw material, energy sectors. Their business actually heavily depend on local real estate developments and the local government sponsored infrastructure projects. If housing markets collapse, there will be huge non-performing loans. So I would call this is China's subprime crisis if it continues. What can be done? First, land price is so high, largely because governments for residential and commercial purpose, largely because local governments monopolize the supply of it. But there are still 200 million migrant workers in Chinese cities who cannot afford the housing. So one approach to address the issue is to allow farmers in migrants receiving cities like Beijing and Shanghai. Local farmers, urban, suburban village who own the house, who own residential land, they can build legal rental house for migrant workers. That actually would help because the house could only be used for rental purpose, because if you allow them to build formal commodity residential house, that will collapse the housing markets immediately. So ask them to only build rental house, and maybe 10 or 15 years later you can sell it. So that actually will help to boost the demand for these goods. That will help migrants to settle down into the cities and turn them gradually to middle class, consumers in China. That's one approach I would say. Second, sell and privatize these enterprises, SOE, close some, sell many, sell most of it, and use the money to pay for the banks, because there's huge holes here. And then privatize this and pay the money to the state-owned bank. So these two real sector reform, I would say will be the most important reform for China's next round of economic rebalancing. Are this happening? Not at all. There's even more strong control of state, local land, because local governments are now, they see huge, decrease of land revenue. They even want to control the land more. They wouldn't allow farmers, in migrant receiving cities to build house for migrant workers. These guys are losing huge money. When you lose money, actually you don't want to privatize. You want to continue strengthen the monopoly. So far, nothing has happened. The only thing that's happened is the government continue to ask state banks to lend to infrastructure projects that is just oversupplied, just useless. So I don't know what will happen. We can discuss that. I will stop here. Thank you.